tabletop RPG. We are coming up with the archives again, this time on Dungeons and Dragons. But I digress. We're not going to be talking about just an edition of Dungeons and Dragons. We're talking about all the editions of Dungeons and Dragons and the differences in them. Today I have Julian, Timmy,
Yo.
Mark,
Hello.
Sarah,
Hey.
and Jesse.
Hi.
So, everyone here has played Dungeons and Dragons to some extent, no matter what it's been. And some of us can say we might have touched on first edition. Anybody here? No?
Actually, no, I have not done I have not done basic or first ed.
Neither have I. I've heard about it, but never have experienced it.
Technically, I've played a second ed module of that pulled a first edition module into it. Return to the Tomb of Horrors uses the original D&D module for that one, but
Shit, okay.
yeah.
Excellent. Anyone touch on Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, second edition?
I think we did once.
I have like 3 sessions in experience in
second ed?
D&D in second ed.
Second
Three
is
sessions.
where I got started. Back in the
That
90s.
that was my first,
I did a little bit.
And here's the
Fucking
funny. We
background.
had Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and then Advanced Dungeons and Dragons second edition. So that was like some weird transition. Then we have third edition, 2000, and then 3.5. That's where I officially started in like this weird ass one shot that I never picked back up again. But I know of it. I just don't really remember any of the rules of 3.5.
Okay.
Similar to, like,
Pathfinder.
One of us Pathfinder. Yeah, that's what it's called.
3.0 came out, Pathfinder came out, 3.5 came out, making some adjustments to the rules that brought it more in line, honestly, with what was going on in Pathfinder.
Right. So, and then they kind of aligned it. Fourth edition, which I call literally D&D the video game.
That's
Yes.
the one I cut my teeth on.
That was the one I unfortunately fully started playing more, which I didn't have a problem with it. It was easy enough for me to follow. I didn't have an issue with it overall, but I know it's like the most hated version of D&D amongst the community.
And I still can't for the life of me figure out why.
Because it felt more like a video game, less like role-playing from what I understand.
Basically, up to that point, D&D had been very welcoming to like a couple of different crowds. It was, yes, open to like your video gamers, but it was also a haven for theater kids, people who've been into improv. And like for a lot of us who've gotten into D&D out of the improv or theater communities like I had, it just felt like a door slamming in your face. Like you're not welcome anymore, really. Because all of our creativity, all of the unusual solutions we would have to problems, well, there's not a page in the book for that. They don't have a solution for that.
Right,
You need to
because
do it this specific way. And it was like, why the fuck am I playing that? I'm gonna go paint.
Right, because like I do remember there was one thing that I kind of remember now that I'm looking back between 5th edition and 4th edition. There was no clean-cut, precise way to really do anything except for how they told you to do it. I did like how they kind of improved on like some classes and done still the epic classes and doing all these really cool stuff. I do kind of like that because it did feel like a video game and being video game friendly. I loved it. I wasn't. If you had a good DM that was still able to kind of circumvent the rules and kind of still make it cool, 4th edition wasn't bad for me. It was just you needed a good DM to make it good.
Maybe that's why I had a good experience with it, because my DM was really good about it's like if you have something that you want to do, they let you do it.
They circumvented the rules, so it was like still use your creativity by all means, and we'll figure out a way to do it. But going by the hard book rules, yeah, it wasn't the same. And then you have the current edition, 5th edition, which is actually 11 years old now. It came out in 2014. Bam, just like that. So, we have over 50 years of D&D to kind of discuss, which we're going to kind of just jump in here and see what the differences were. So, let's talk about the original. The The original D&D, which is called either Zero Edition or Original D&D, was made up of 3 short brown booklets: Men and Magic, Monsters and Treasure, and the Underworld and Wilderness Adventures. This initial iteration of D&D was simply that, Dungeons and Dragons, and it has since been renamed Original Dungeons and Dragons in order to set it apart from other editions of the role-playing game. This 0th edition of D&D, as it's sometimes called, was created with a budget of just $2,000, published as a box set in 1974, and is barely recognizable in comparison to the RPG we know today.
Isn't that the red box?
No, it was just before the red box.
Oh.
This was like the box before the red box. The red box is technically Advanced Dungeons and Dragons that we know. Technically. There are only 3 characters you can play as. Or, sorry, 3 character classes: Fighting Man, Magic User, and Cleric. Along with that, there are only 4 races playable: either Human, Dwarf, Elf, and Hobbit.
Wow.
The guide to play through the game consisted of 3 rulebooks: Men and Magic, Monsters and Treasure, and the Underworld and Wilderness. Men and Magic was created as a 34-page booklet which laid out the rules for playing your character, taking part in combat, and casting spells. This book originally suggested that the game could be played with between 4 and 50 fucking players, with the Dungeon Master, then named the referee, creating their own dungeon or underworld.
50 players, it's gonna be an exhausted, game master.
That's literally the Lord of the Rings war.
Right.
In one
That's
session.
That's like actual LARPing kind of.
You might as well.
qualities.
Honestly, at that point, it's like combat starts, do your turn, go get food for everybody else, because by the time you get back, the round will be done.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully. I mean, by that, I can't imagine combat probably went way faster. Because what the fuck are you doing? What are you thinking about? If you want to bitch slap him or fucking hit him with your sword? Or cast a fucking firebolt or whatever the fuck they
That's
have.
true, your options are limited too.
Super. So, I can't imagine, so 50 combat, like, alright, who's hitting who with a fucking sword? Are you going after the fucking goblin? Let's go for it. Like, what was there to friggin' talk about? It was detailed in this set of rules that dwarfs and hobbits could only play fighting men. Elves could switch between fighting men and magic users,
Great.
and humans, as the default character option, could pretty much do whatever the fuck they wanted,
So
as
cleric
labeled
is-
here. What?
So cleric is fucking shafted?
Cleric?
Clerics always get shafted.
You can,
I
I mean, technically, I guess, magic user would also clarify as cleric, I guess, but I guess that depends on their rules. So pretty much only humans can play clerics.
Lame.
Racist.
I mean, that's the 70s, I guess.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Before we get further on this, my first introduction to D&D was not Dungeons and Dragons itself. It was 2 games on the computer,
Oh, shit.
and based on the original Dungeons and Dragons. 1975 game called Colossal Cave Adventure,
Oh, Jesus.
which was originally built in 76, right after D&D came out.
Oh, God.
And it was built for mainframes and PDPs.
Oh, jeez.
So and this was based. I was actually playing this with my father was at Indiana University at the time, getting his doctorate of education. And I'd go over there, and and this game was being played everywhere in the colleges about that time. And then in '77, the next year, the Zork series came out.
Oh, my God.
The Zork was also based on the adventures D&D with monsters you grew. You have
Well, let's see, 76 is also the year that Advanced Dungeons and Dragons came out. So probably along the same lines.
Yeah, all of this came along because it had been started building in '76, based on the original Dungeons and Dragons, and then based on and then some of the advances from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So all of this is morphing all at the same time. You have the 1970s, or late 1970s, when you got your TRS-80s and your Commodore 64s and your pet computers and your Texas Instruments TI-99 computers, and all of this is single player. Single player Dungeons and Dragons, which introduced a lot of kids to this, who started playing the board game, the actual Dungeons and Dragons game, as they got together in high schools. So all of this is kind of the late 70s, 80s. College kids and high school students kind of cut their teeth on a lot of the computer programs first, because they were first a single player.
Oh my god, that's wild. I like that. I like learning shit like that. To set your ability scores, you still roll 3d6. Were rolled by the referee, so you didn't have to roll. The DM rolled for you. This resulted in an ability score range between 3 and 18. The maximum spell level was 6, and the maximum character level was 16. First edition of D&D was basically a war game with a Lord of the Rings medieval twist. It followed the rules of popular war games at the time, which include Chainmail, the medieval miniature war game, which was also made by TSR. And Dungeons & Dragons was released in 1974, provided a stepping stone for competing RPG publishers who wanted to break into the market with something similar. These included Tunnels and Trolls, which was released the following year and aimed to be an even more accessible role-playing game than D&D.
Well, I don't think it did that, because I don't think anyone probably listening to this has ever heard of Tunnels and Trolls.
I'll be honest, I haven't. I haven't either. So no, I think it failed.
I think that one tanks. That was the GoBots of D&D.
And what was TSR again?
The publisher.
Yeah, they were the ones who did publishing all the way through up until 3rd edition.
Now, what's funny is that, like, I've heard of Chainmail, but not in the, see, all I heard of it was it's medieval Warhammer, but I don't know anything about that either, because I've never seen anything for it. And I only heard about it from people who have played Warhammer who are in their 50s. It's the only time I've heard about anything like that.
I've heard of it as something Gygax had done as a precursor to D&D, but I never really looked into it. It didn't hit the way D&D did.
Right. So, just super interesting. That's really cool, though. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, a step up for veteran players, released 1977, run until 1979. So, as you might have guessed from the Advanced moniker, this edition of Dungeons & Dragons wasn't for the faint of heart or complete newcomers to role-playing. The rules for playing in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons were incredibly hard to follow unless you had been playing the original for a long while. In fact, it was difficult to even gain access to each rule book, the Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual, due to the fact that publisher TSR didn't have the money to release them all at the same time. Each of the 3 books was released over the course of 3 years, from 1977 to 1979, resulting in widespread confusion about how exactly the game should be played. However, there were some major additions in this advanced version of RPG, which were important to any player to take advantage of. These included new D&D classes seen in supplements such as the Assassin, the Druid, the Monk, Paladin, and Thief, and the official introduction of Bard, Illusionist, and Ranger. Alignments were also changed. Instead of the previous 3 alignment system, a new 9 alignment system was introduced. So we see here that Assassin and Illusionist gone, and Thief pretty much changed to Rogue at this point. That's pretty cool though. I like that.
It seemed weird to have an assassin and a thief class.
But I mean, when you think about it, like thieves were thieves back then. They didn't go and attacking people. I mean, maybe holding people up at dagger point, but they weren't trained in killing. They were self-defense. Whereas an assassin, you talk about like Ezio de Auditore, was just going around knifing motherfuckers in public without being caught.
Fair.
I think with that one, the main reason that they got rid of Assassin is that if I remember correctly, in 3rd or 3.5, they changed it into a prestige class.
Probably.
Yes, but Assassin wasn't a class at all in, I think, second.
In second edition, yeah.
Yeah.
And in second edition, yeah, probably. Because, I mean, that's pretty much it. Then you have Advanced Dungeons and Dragons second edition, which I'm sure is what we all refer to as second edition naturally.
Right.
So naturally, with the new edition of Dungeons and Dragons, you expect to see improvements to what was released previously. One of the major benefits of using the second edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons rule set was that it was simplified, making it far easier to understand the rules. The first Advanced Dungeons and Dragons offering was very much designed to be for hardcore players of the RPG, making it overly complicated and difficult to take in. The second edition of AD&D solved this problem and effectively presented the AD&D that should have been created in the first place. This was released a full 10 years after the first edition of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So not until 1989 was it released. And so any issues with the prior version were going to be very apparent. With those fixed and a nostalgic kick offered to original players, it was always going to be something of a hit. The second edition of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons eventually led to a re-release of a much cleaner Player's Handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide in 1955.
Whoa, 55?
1995. I don't know why I said 55. That's on me.
I remember the new books, and I remember us getting the new books because we had the old books.
See, this is the edition I came into. Basically, me and a bunch of other theater geeks would go skip class to go play D&D and do drugs at the park. It was
Hey!
good times. Thaco can still go burn in hell forever.
Fuck Thaco. Fuck Thaco.
Negative AC. Why did they think this was a good idea?
So, to clue people in, Thaco is 2-hit armor class 0. And for pretty much every class at level 1, your to hit armor class 0 was 20. You had to roll a 20 to hit an AC of 0. But everybody starts off at an AC of 10. And then your AC goes down depending on the more armor you have, or if you have high dexterity that...
Yeah,
it was like everything is like
completely inverted and felt very weird.
It's like,
It
okay.
feels like golf in the worst way
kind of.
possible.
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, I've got a +2 armor that gives me a -2 to my armor. So the math was clunky.
You know what? Now I completely understand some of those rants online that I see about Thaco, and now I understand. Okay. No one's made that clearly apparent to me. Now I understand.
What the fuck Thaco is
Yeah.
and why it was annoying?
Right, because no one expected. They were like, "Oh, major armor class 0." I'm like, how the fuck does that happen? And they go, "Ask people who have played a second edition." I'm like, "I need. If you know, tell me."
I got no one's
told me.
And now, so now you'll know.
Punch people in the face for that shit.
It was horrible. Some of the other issues with second edition that were a little complicated were the 18 strength ratings for fighters.
Oh,
yeah.
What?
If you were a fighter,
Only if you're a
and
fighter.
only if you were a fighter, and you had an 18 for your strength, you would then roll D100.
Like, are we talking about the double D10?
Yeah.
Wow.
And your strength score would be 1801 up to 1800, 18100. 18100 being the highest. After that, it goes to 19 for monsters. But for some reason,
Oh yeah, but you couldn't go over 18 if you were not a unless you were at all. They didn't have stat boosts. They didn't have stat boosts.
That's
Theoretically.
friggin' wild. That's ridiculous.
And that wasn't the only place where the D100 got used. If you were a rogue, your rogue skills were a nightmare. Pickpockets, hide in shadows, move silently, pick locks. All of these would be percentile, and if you were trying to do that, you would roll 2d10 and try to roll under what your percentage was for a success.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Give me a fucking headache.
It used way more dice. Still didn't use much with the D12, but
Poor neglected
poor
D12.
neglected D12.
Only used for great axes and bastard swords, apparently.
Undead.
Barbarian hit die and undead.
The Barbarian hit die, yes. Dungeons & Dragons co-creator Gary Gygax claimed that this whole rework was to deny him royalties on sales for the previous edition. Fucking Gygax. It was also in part due to the fact Dungeons & Dragons was getting some negative publicity by the God-fearing people who had gotten wind of the role-playing game and believed it was the devil worship as part of a growing satanic panic.
I have a hilarious story about this one.
Go for it.
Okay, so my high school group, right? You know, meanwhile we keep sneaking around, doing our thing, and my mother finally at one point is like, "What is it you guys and your friends have been off doing? Are you guys shoplifting? Are you doing drugs? It's drugs." And I was like, "Well, we had been doing drugs, but I didn't tell her that." But
Yes and no.
But I was like, well, but my friends all were like, "Don't tell your mom because you know if she's religious at all, she'll have a freak out." This is the end of the '90s. So I'm like, okay, so we've been playing this game. She's, what kind of game? Looking at me in purity culture a little bit. I'm like, it's called Dungeons & Dragons. She's, oh my god, you guys are playing D&D? I thought you were doing something serious. You guys can play with your own spaghetti. Like, it was like machine gun. I was like, what? She was, yeah, no, I used to play in the 80s. And then that was it. But it was like, I've been hiding it and panicking for weeks.
Wow.
And my first experiences with D&D were at a Christian college where it was prohibited, as were, alcohol and
Anything fun?
pretty much, yeah. But we would still, hang out in the power plant late at night, sitting on pallets of water softener salt.
God.
And
Coffee.
actually, it surprisingly was. It's like pallets with the bags of it,
Yeah.
and so they just kind of. It was a little crunchy, but
It was so crunchy.
it was like
Yeah.
a crunchy beanbag chair.
Yeah. I can see that. So in order to quell these worries, all mention of devils and demons were removed and replaced with fiendish equivalents known as Tenarl and Badazu to complete the attempt at marketing Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2 second edition as a wholesome game that was perfectly suitable for teens and up. The focus was shifted towards heroics and teamwork as opposed to battling monsters and straight up murder.
Also, Tenari, Beitsu.
Tenari and Beitsu, yes.
Yeah.
A few additions to the
I'm like, he misread that.
I did misread that, because that looked all like one fucking shape to me. A few additions to this edition that you may recognize include armor class, movement being measured in feet, and optional critical hit rules. Proficiencies were also no longer an optional add-on, but became fully supported by the core rules. Woot woot. Okay. Let's get into shit that we really know. 3rd edition, the birth of the official D20 system. That's what it says here
They
anyway.
got rid of most of the D100 stuff, except for the Dungeon Master.
So here we are at 3rd edition D&D. The first D&D edition published by Magic the Gathering maker, Wizards of the fucking Coast.
Sure, it's on the shore.
After what is that? The Tamu versions?
We got Wizards of the Coast at home.
Yeah, Sorcerers of the Shore. Like I would be dead. I couldn't.
Warlocks of the Westlands.
After its acquisition of TSR in 1997, at this point, Wizards decided to drop the advanced element of the RPG, joining the basic version, which has been discontinued some years ago, simplifying the game to just Dungeons and Dragons. The release of the 3rd edition also brought about a new system, the D20 system. This new mechanic brought about a much more unified system of gameplay, with the majority of actions requiring a D20 roll to resolve them. Along with this gameplay was simplified across the board, with ability score modifiers allowing a set formula and saving throws reduced from the 5 categories to 3 based on defense rather than attack. Combat in 3.E and 3E was also put into the spotlight, encouraging tactical combat with miniatures to be played on a grid system. Big character changes came in form of new class Sorcerer, while the Thief became the Rogue, with Rogue having previously been used to represent both the Thief and Bard classes. Characters were given a chance to prestige their characters when they reached higher levels, allowing them to advance their characters beyond level 20. 3rd edition also gave players the freedom to make any race and any class work together, rather than the restrictions of the past, which continues to be a little ridiculous in retrospect. Skills and feats were also introduced, allowing players to customize their characters to their heart's content.
This was a good thing.
It was a very good thing.
This is honestly my favorite edition so far. It's been my favorite edition.
Because I have such very little aspect in remembrance of it, except for it just, I don't know, just that little one shot I did when I was like fucking in 9th or 10th grade, whatever it was. It was such a weird time for me, and like, I don't really honestly remember much of it, except the fact it was kind of ridiculous. That's all I remember.
This was the edition I think my brother started playing in high school. Because he used to play with a couple of his buddies, and they would play every week, and I didn't understand a fucking lick of it, because generational gap. I'm like, okay, whatever, you're playing Dungeons and something or other. I guess, oops.
Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, an improved version of the 3rd edition that would become one of D&D's most popular releases ever. A mere 3 years after 3rd edition, it was overshadowed by another shiny new edition, 3.5, with Wizards having completed its initial overhaul of the rule set and officially put its mark on the RPG. It was only natural that it would want to make a few edits based on player feedback and common complaints. In essence, it took the 3rd edition and made it the best it could be, which is why it was dubbed Edition 3.5. For a lot of Dungeons & Dragons players, D&D 3.5 is the best of the best, cream of the crop. It doesn't mean it was a completely successful release. However, as many players who had invested in the Player's Handbook and Dungeon Master Guide for 3rd edition only a few years before resented having to go out and buy a brand new books in order to play 3.5. According to Roll20's data for the first quarter of 2021, D&D 3.5 is still among the most played RPGs on the virtual tabletop platform today. The only other edition of Dungeons & Dragons listed at the top 10 is 5th edition, and we'll get to that in a moment. Though, first is another D&D edition we need to take a look at. Any funny stories from 3.5 they want to tell?
Because we kind of went to Pathfinder, more or less.
Well, because at the time there were some corporate things going on, and okay, this is a little bit of tea here. I don't like the way that Wizards deals with, they pull Walmart on smaller publishers.
Uh-huh.
They're really bad about chasing them out of the market. And honestly, Pathfinder was a bunch of the original guys who'd written D&D for Second Ed, etc., and who got together basically after being pushed out. And so I kind of had this whole strike solidarity, I'm going to Pathfinder a little bit there.
And part of that came with they wanted. Wizards of the Coast did a thing with the online gaming license, OGL, Open Gaming License, that's right, not online. Open Gaming License, basically saying, okay, this is the D20 rules, you can write stuff for it, go ahead, because they wanted more stuff out there, because if there were, more modules available,
People
from
were
various
likely
people,
to adopt
people would be more likely to buy their system and their core books so that they can play these other, and that's what they did, but people ended up buying more of the other companies' side products, and Wizards of the Coast was kind of like, hey, that's money we're not getting.
And then eventually they tried to yank that licensing.
And that didn't go well.
No.
They got some significant negative feedback.
Well,
I can imagine so.
Well, there have been people who literally made 20-year careers on publishing their own material through the OGL. And they just suddenly got the rug yanked out from under them.
So one of my funny cleaner stories from my 3.5 gameplay was creating a missile launcher, essentially. So how I managed to do that was I had a friend, so I was playing a sorcerer at the time, and I told my friend, I'm like, you know what, I want to make a magical item for a magic missile. And they go, what kind of item? Like, I literally wanted to point at someone and shoot a bunch of magic missiles out. And they were like, okay, yeah, we can do that. You go to the magic store, and I'm going to have you make some rolls. I'm like, okay, what are the rolls? He goes, I need you to roll me a D100. I'm like, which is the D100? He goes, that's the two 10-sided dice. I'm like this? He goes, yeah, alright. He goes, I go, what do you want me to roll? He goes, well, first roll to see how many scrolls of magic missile you need to imbue. I'm like, okay, so I could get as little as 1, but as much as 100. He goes, yeah. Natural roll a fucking 100. I don't even know how, I just did. And he goes, okay, now roll me a D20. I need you to roll it twice. One for the craft and one for the ability to make it work. I'm like, okay, roll a 19, roll the 20. And he goes, okay, fuck it. You learn a magic missile launcher.
That's hilarious.
And you go, how does it work? So he makes some rolls and he goes, fuck. And I go, what's wrong? He goes, so every time you use this thing, you have to roll a d20 to hit. I'm like, okay. And then you proceed to shoot 10 magic missiles for a d4 apiece. I'm like, so I get to do minimum 10 damage. He goes, yes. And maximum 40. Yes, you could wipe out a fucking soldier. I go, can I improve it? No, I'm not going to allow you to improve this monstrosity. No. And thus, the first time I used it, I rolled a 20 and hit for 40 damage, killing some dude. Unfortunately, the second time I tried to use it, I rolled a 1, and he made some rolls, and the whole thing exploded on me, causing me like 20 damage. I was like at 1 HP. So, oops!
The 3.5 game, I think, that we did have, because we did play it for a while, but it was just like we just played other things too. For after a while. Do you remember, hey, Timmy, do you remember the one, because I think that was actually a D&D game, the Kingdom of the Council of Seven game.
Oh, yeah. That was,
Oh,
that
no
was
shit, right,
Pathfinder.
that was Pathfinder, sorry.
That was a Pathfinder one.
They're so close though, honestly, they're interchangeable, they really
They
are.
might as well be.
3.5 in Pathfinder. Honestly, Pathfinder was like 3.75. Some people
Yeah.
jokingly call it that.
I never delved into Pathfinder seriously, but looked on a website where I was looking up 3.5 magic items. And then Pathfinder magic items. I'm like, Pathfinder has way cooler magic items. I would love a set of fucking burning magic where I just get to do a whole bunch of fire shit and my sword and shield both do fire damage for no reason. Sure, I would love this. Where the fuck is this in Dungeons & Dragons 3.5? Where's this in 5.0?
I don't know. I've looked into both of them, and D&D never really fleshes out their crafting systems.
Nope.
Not all of Pathfinder's crafting systems are the greatest. They're
But they do have one.
exactly.
And I have made a few magic items. I know Donovan has. And God, I mean, I'm sorry to say, but like, some of my shit's fucking broken, but I mean, if you don't have a DM that can deal with it, I mean, tough luck, I guess, I don't know. But, that's the only thing I have to say about it.
One of the other things that I recall that changed between some of the editions and also with Pathfinder was the skill points. With D&D, it was like you'd get so many skill points and you could assign them to your skills, but the most you could have, points you could have, would be whatever your level is plus 3. So at first level, you could have 4 in a skill.
I actually remember that too.
But in Pathfinder, instead, they went with just less points. You could put 1 point in for every level, but you would get a plus 3 bonus to any of your skills that were
In your class.
that were class skills.
Yes, I do remember something like that where when you picked a class in 3.5, you had proficiencies in these skills and nothing else. You couldn't gain proficiency, you couldn't gain anything unless like it was through a background or something similar to that, which I didn't have. I didn't have backgrounds in 3.5. They had something similar though, I just don't remember.
You basically just picked stuff.
I think it was like lineage and stuff.
feats and
Bloodlines.
Bloodline.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you had like your sorcery bloodline or fey bloodline.
But yeah, like certain aspects, you'll get additional proficiencies, but like it was a set proficiency, and like you couldn't change that.
Right.
However, if you were like, oh well, I have proficiency from being a sorcerer in Arcana or whatever it was, and I also have it from like my bloodline doing so and so. I had double proficiency, and I was like, you can only have double proficiency in like one thing. And it pretty much gave you like, I think it was like +5 or +6 at the time. It was some weird shit. I just remember like proficiency being really weird at 3.5 for me.
Something that I remember, now the Fluppies game was a 3.5 game. That one was. The rules for 3.5 and the difference between that and, I don't know if this came in 4, because I didn't really read 4 that much, but if it was a thing with 5, going and splitting apart polymorph and baleful polymorph, because they weren't split apart. And so you could take your enemies and defeat them by transforming them permanently into something absolutely obnoxiously cute and giving it to some noblewoman's kid. I made something called, we had these ogres we fought, and I turned them into fluppies. They're the floppiest, cutesiest puppies you've ever seen, with voices that naturally sound like they're singing. So that they got to basically entertain, like, noble, bratty children for the rest of their existence. And I made profit off it. Just shifted my alignment to evil a little bit, but hey.
the ogres are constantly screaming angrily, but everyone just hears beautiful singing.
And goes, oh, she's a cutie, you know. Yeah. And 3.5 allowed for this. 5 was like, yeah, you can come out of here with that and try to pull that.
How about no?
Exactly.
Dungeons & Dragons 4.0, D&D's most controversial edition. Now here's why we think it was pretty much played as a video game, because it was. It took inspiration from popular video games at the time, like World of Warcraft, and released only a few years after the last D&D edition. 4th edition proved highly divisive among the D&D community. You may have heard that there's a lot of hate out there for 4th edition, and there's certainly a reason for the criticism lodged against it. Once again, with the previous edition of D&D only having been released a handful of years prior, some players refused to move on from 4th edition and instead continued to rely on 3.5 or even the RPGs that have spawned from it, such as Pathfinder. Despite this, the initial run of Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition sold out ahead of the game's full release in the summer of 2008, and a second print run had been announced soon after. D&D 4th edition is incredibly combat-focused, with the use of miniatures becoming mandatory and classes taking up roles you might be more familiar with in an MMORPG video game, such as tank or DPS. Accordingly, many fans accuse Wizards of the Coast of trying to make D&D more like a hit PC game, World of Warcraft, losing the heart of the dragons in the process. This extended to the introduction of loot box-like blind packs of miniatures that made the game exceptionally expensive to play. Characters were now able to go up to level 30 as opposed to the traditional cap of level 20. Despite this upside, players have found that this edition was less about building an interesting character and role-playing them throughout their journey, and more about tactical gameplay, making the experience feel very unbalanced. Based on the 4th edition rule set of Dungeons & Dragons Essentials, was brought out 3 years after this in 2010, trying to attract new players rather than established ones. That wasn't until the development of the next edition that many new players truly felt welcome, though. So, I'm going to speak on 4.0 because
Same.
I like it only because I like the combat aspect, and if you have a really good DM, it's just like anything else. If you have someone that can tell the story, that can still build your characters with you, I say it's still a pretty good system. It just plays differently because they introduce so many video game-like aesthetics to it that it feels just very different from 3.5 and even from 2nd edition.
Speaking as someone who never played it, it was the easiest to learn on my behalf. And to me, it streamlined things a little bit. At least that's how it felt. There were still obviously aspects that I didn't entirely understand, which is why I bought the compendium, so that I could understand it. And that's why I thought 5th edition was weird when I went back to being max level of 20. I'm like, wait a minute, why can't we go to epic tier? Which was because they had the base level, which was level 1 to level
10.
10.
And then
Paragon was from 11 to 21, and then epic level was from 21 to 30. And I didn't understand that. Like, I'm just learning now that 20 was the main original cap. So it's like, why did it suddenly change?
And I didn't know there was a cap either, honestly, when I played the 3.5, so we only got to level 10, so as far as I knew. Yeah, I thought you could just go as high as you wanted.
And I understand why they went after the video game crowd so hard, because there was a lot of people and a lot of more money. The thing is that when you chase one crowd, sometimes you leave somebody else behind. And so it was one of those things that I've played, I went to Pathfinder. I also just went to games that were a lot more personal, customizable. Like, that's really when I got fully into World of Darkness.
Yeah, D&D was my gateway drug. 4.0 was my gateway drug to really embracing RPGs. And honestly, when I moved here to Nevada, from meeting you guys through Donovan, I got to know World of Darkness. I played Smite. Not Smite. Friggin', oh my god. It was also part of the World of Darkness. Scion. So Scion, I got to learn through my DM back home, learn about werewolf and mage and vampire the masquerade here, and then I learned about champions back home, big eye, small mouth when I moved here. There's a ton of RPGs that I started opening up to and trying to find afterwards. But as difficult as some RPGs have been, it's just been fun to learn. Scion still takes me a minute, and I've played it. It still takes me a minute to make sure that I'm building the characters right to run an adventure.
If it takes you less than 2 hours to make your Rifts character, you did something wrong. Go back.
I'd say so. Like, Vampire,
It's fast.
it's fast, yeah, but it's interesting.
If you know what you're doing.
I like Werewolf because there's so many. You could be just more than a good puppy. Like you could be more than just a simple, any of the actual werewolves you like. I like the fact you could be a coyote.
Mm-hmm.
I hate the fact that you have to die, but I mean that's just part of the storyline. I get it.
Well, yeah, so the whole, and that's, the last couple of years I went back to Pathfinder precisely because we've had some really dark headlines. And we've had some really dark times in our world, and I hit a point for a while there where it was like, I cannot roll in darkness for a while. But I really didn't, like I said, D&D kind of, I've gotten into 5 a bit, but it's still it's clunky compared to other things that I'm used to. So it's just one of those, like, I'm slowly drifting back into other systems, but... And I think that's the reason why D&D did succeed over other games. Not just Wizards' sharp tactics, which they have definitely employed, but it's also the fact that you can run, like World of Darkness always obviously runs itself toward tragedy or something, you have to be in a good place to play it. D&D, you can be in a crappy place in your life, and then you can run something silly and just forget about it for a while, and thus it has a little more all-season, it's an all-season vehicle,
For sure.
Yeah.
Touching back on the problems that Wizards of the Coast had, particularly with 4th edition, without getting overly political about things, this is what happens when companies are focused entirely on profit and not on quality. If you're looking at, okay, how much money can I milk out of this, you're not going to see the quality of product that would actually end up probably generating more attachment.
I don't
from your
know,
consumers.
because TSR hit that pinata pretty freaking hard during the 90s. I mean, I'm going to kind of...
Yeah, they were there too. But.
I mean, because I owned Encyclopedia Magica and Faiths and Avatars. Neither of those books needed to actually exist. Neither of them needed to exist, because the Encyclopedia Magica was just a compilation of all of the... It was a Eclipse episode for books. It was all of the magic spells that they had released so far. Faiths and Avatars, just a glossy print book about the deities of Forgotten Realms, specifically. Just that. No statistics. Just all flavor text.
Very much.
Yeah, that's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
I think the thing that Bob, now even as someone who cut their teeth on 4th edition, the thing that bothered me is that, and the thing that I struggled with when I moved to 5th edition, is that it made you reliant on the builder if you had not played the other editions. Because the builder did basically all of the math for you.
Oh yeah, so there was an official D&D 4th edition builder that was released that took all the math and complication out of building the character, as well as instead of remembering everything, I had to write it down. But the builder was like, oh, you have this ability, this is what it does, this is when you can use it, and it pretty much made these character cards for you, which they then released in packages later that you could buy. Which, if you didn't have builder, there you go, you could just use these cards.
But the problem was you needed to pay the subscription for it to use the builder. And that's ultimately what kind of pissed me off, was you had to either use someone else's account or you had to pay the money for your own account.
Or if you managed to get the jailbroken version, you could use it, but
But
It's
it
someone
stopped
that
being
knew how
up,
to do this.
it stopped being updated after a certain point.
See, to me, the point of really getting into role playing from the beginning was I buy this set of books, I have this set of dice, I have infinite hours of entertainment.
Pretty much.
I should be able to. And so something rubs me the wrong way about tabletop role playing companies making their products very subscription reliant on anything.
Yeah.
It's just personally that gets my hackles up too.
And that's why with what we're going to talk about in a bit, which is 5th edition with D&D Beyond.
Which, you know, depending on how you look at it, which D&D Beyond in and of itself is super subscription based, but people just going around buying the books anyway. Fuck the subscription, you don't need it.
Right.
So, latest and greatest version of D&D to date, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition was the first made available in January 2012 and completely revolutionized the RPG by developing it through a public open playtest for the first time ever. As well as its player-friendly development style, a basic rule PDF was released for free in 2014, allowing new potential players to see what they were in for. The 5th edition starter set was released July 2014 and contained pre-generated character instructions for a basic play and adventure module entitled The Lost Mine of Phandelver. Since 2014, over 40 5th edition books, supplements, and source books have been published, including adventure modules, rulebooks, and various gameplay guides. According to Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is the most successful edition to date, thanks in part to the emergence of actual play streams such as Critical Role, Dimension 20, and Dicebreaker's own Dungeon Breaker. This has allowed for the introduction of countless new players to the playing game. So,
It basically took the basement aesthetic of Dungeons and Dragons from old and brought it out into the mainstream so that anyone who may have heard of it felt okay playing it because they didn't feel like they would be like labeled basement dwellers.
or something.
Also, we all kind of became basement dwellers by default about 6 years after it was released. You know, that whole year we didn't go fucking outside. Thank you, 2020. Like, I know so many people who never played before. Hey, Mark. Like, Mark's aunt. Actually, his Aunt Paula and his cousin, like, they started a family D&D game. His mom's like an OG hippie, like the original class hippie. And we went down there and we played it, and they're like, yeah, we've been playing D&D. I'm like, this was the first time he's ever meeting his family. He was like, okay, we can do this.
And we both kind of jumped in with two characters. What was it, 10th level or something like that?
6th level.
Sixth
It was
level.
a 6th level campaign.
Jesus
Or no, it was 6th or 8th. And something
Eight,
like
it
that.
was 8.
8th, because it's right, I actually had lightning bolt and fireball. Yeah. But, like, yeah, she was a 75-year-old woman, picked up D&D for the first time.
Yeah, because of the pandemic, they were bored at home and it was like, oh, what the hell are we going to do?
Because here's the thing, at least the basement dwellers of old, like, we had a comfy basement.
Right?
Nobody had a comfy basement in 2020. It became aspirational.
So, of course, it makes sense that this edition has been hailed as one of the best D&D editions, as it represents decades of additions and improvements building on D&D's most popular aspects, as well as correcting its mistakes over the years. Gameplay is streamlined, allowing for a focus on roleplay, combat, and character creation in equal measures. Notable changes including a single proficiency bonus that increases alongside your character level, a single value of armor class, and saving throws that fall in line with your character's 6 core abilities: strength, dexterity, intelligence, constitution, wisdom, and charisma. Feats are optional and can be taken instead of the ability score increase. Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition also introduced an advantage and disadvantage with players rolling D2 D20s and using either the higher or lower results depending on the situation. 4th edition power system became class features with the list expanding as the character levels up. Characters, druids, paladins, and wizards prepare their spells using a slightly improved preparation system, which takes a lot of influence from previous editions, and healing surges are replaced by hit die. So, that is breaking down every single edition of D&D. So across the board, Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons players everywhere conclude that 5th edition, for the most part, is the most successful, followed by 3.5. So, I can actually conclude that, as much as I love 4th edition, I really do love 5th edition the most, and by that's only by default of me not playing as much as 3rd edition or 3.5. So by default, I have to agree that I love 5.0 the most, just for the ridiculous characters that I've been able to build with it so far. So I can't complain. I even made it a chicken shaman.
I'm gonna make a weird prediction here, because it's been quite a while. They're gonna announce plans for 6th within the next year and a half.
They already did.
Oh,
Yeah.
Shit.
So
Yeah, they've announced it.
D&D 1.
They're calling it D&D 1. Yeah, exactly.
What is with companies in doing that?
So, from what I understand it being, is that they're alpha testing it right now. They wanted to make it like 1st edition and 5th edition had a baby, and I don't know how they're going to do that.
Oh,
Frankenstein's monster.
Horribly.
I would imagine that this involves large quantities of probably cocaine.
Probably.
Okay.
I can hold on, Ganya. The one thing that worries me is that I'm like, if they're really basing it off of 1st edition, we're talking about 0 edition according to this, are they going to limit who can play what again? Are we going to end up with the fucking dwarves just playing fighters and elves playing snooty mages?
Dwarves and clerics are a long-standing tradition.
Now they are.
Fuck that.
Right. I mean,
At least
still
then,
fighters.
4th edition won't be seen as the most controversial.
God. I can thoroughly say, I don't think 6th edition's coming out in the next year.
No, I was going to say that they'll announce a release date for what year it will be anticipated though. Because they're going to alpha
And
right
then
now.
it'll be years after that.
Yeah, they'll be like coming 2028. And then they'll get like,
And then it'll show up in like 2032.
Yes, Julian?
yeah.
Well, there is also the whole thing of in 2024 they did a re-release of 5e, but they changed a bunch of stuff and are calling it the 2024 edition.
Yes.
So
Wow.
I don't know if they're making 6th edition or if they're just going to try and milk this thing as long as they can.
It's like the Fast and the Furious 20, the quest for more money.
It's very
You know
very profit
what? You know what pisses me off though? That D&D has never managed to get, in the entirety of every edition, including the current one, aerial combat. It is a game with dragons. That's
And the
why.
aerial combat
Why
is
the
shite.
can't we get decent aerial combat rules?
So, the closest they got to that is you could technically ride a wyvern or something similar, but there's no, like, aerial combat rules. It's just, congratulations, you have a flight speed and you can roam around.
Okay, I would like to point out one thing. In Dimension 20, because I have watched it, one of the first-ish side campaigns they did was Escape from Bloodkeep with Matt Mercer and a couple of other people.
That's when
And
they're doing the space pirates, right?
no, that's
Star Legion or Starlight?
Starstruck.
Starstruck?
No, this was the one where everyone was evil-ish, and they actually did a pretty good job about aerial combat, because they had, like, 4 different characters all in the sky, and then they did it again during, their, New York, the Unsleeping City. The final battle actually mostly took place in the air.
Yeah, but
And the
that's
way that
nothing,
they...
but that's nothing officially released.
No, but they have measuring tapes that you can use to basically count the number of squares upwards that you are and use.
They basically just triangulate the
I
math.
was gonna
Yeah.
say, it's the same issues you have when you do anything on the ocean.
Yeah, the last game I was running, we were trying to do sea battles.
Yeah.
And I found a third party, somebody had written a very extensive how to do naval battles, but there's nothing officially how to do a naval battle, because, or besides naval battles, anything,
Airship, anything like that.
anything
Yeah,
with,
anything with vertical technicality they can't do properly.
or anything with a vehicle that you're in.
All they're doing is really simplifying it, but there's nothing like to control the vehicle, to make sure it doesn't spiral if it gets
And
hit.
to
Yeah,
be
there's-
honest, I think this is one where if they haven't come out with it in 50 years, it might be time for a new system.
Yeah, because there's nothing there for how do you, like any type of vehicle.
I'm gonna check
it
out the
doesn't matter.
Spelljammer and check into it, because I feel like that might be the only system we might see it in, because
Shadow-
Shadow-
Shadowrun has some vehicle, some of how to do combat with the vehicle. But if you look at it, D&D has nothing with how to do vehicles, like even a even a cart, even a cart with a horse.
You got a speed.
You've
That's
got a
about it.
speed, but you don't have damage to the cart or like a wheel falling off the cart or the horse and the cart get disconnected. There's nothing, it treats the vehicle as one object that's part of you.
And the only thing they have that you can even remotely look at is, I think, a DM screen, and I think there's a couple of items inside the books where you're like, oh, if you're looking for the difficulty of breaking down, the side of a wooden house, that might be the equivalent of a carriage. You could probably use that, but when you're talking about difficulty checks, which are essentially armor class or skills.
Yeah, but it doesn't really say anything about, okay,
No.
you're riding a cart and you lose a wheel on the cart, what happens? I mean,
Are you just SOL?
are you just SOL? Can you, do you go round in circles? I mean, what happens?
I think that's where the DM discretion comes
And
in.
that's all you can really do, because they don't give you much on it. But in that respect, that's where the imagination part comes in. If you have a good DM to really do it, you can.
And that is, in a number of the editions, as I recall, one of the things that is clearly laid out is if you run into something that the rules don't cover, make the call.
Yeah. But it would be nice to have a set of standardized rules of how to deal with a vehicle, because that should be pretty basic. I mean, yeah,
But not everybody wants to math that much.
That's a lot of math.
Well, it is.
well, that's the thing.
Not if you have a chart.
Yeah,
Do a route chart.
yeah. If they had just a chart to do
And chart
this,
the action.
or something, or some mechanism of, okay, here's how you deal with combat in a vehicle. And there's nothing like that. It doesn't matter if it's a wagon or a spaceship or even something like a wagon being drawn by dragons in the sky.
Exactly. So, overall, I think we've covered Dungeons and Dragons pretty well. Whichever edition you're playing, as long as you have a cool DM and a cool group, keep on playing. Make your characters as avengery or as dark as possible. Make that creepy ranger that only likes bare feet or whatever your kit is, whatever that might encompass. But for everyone out there listening to Tabletop RPG, you all have a good night and take care of yourselves.